feel like I should talk to my therapist about this.
Yeah, just print off one of those for her. Let her see
Yeah,
it.
hey, can you just read this like War and Peace length fan fiction and let me know what you think about it?
I'll check in with you in 2 days.
Yeah.
Welcome to Recapping Romantasy, hot takes on hot literature. Who are we?
We are me, Emma.
I am Mara.
And I am Tabitha. Recapping Romantasy contains mature content. Be sure to check the episode notes for content warnings and a link to the transcript. Guys, I'm so excited to go home and eat something other than cheese.
Yeah, we ate so much cheese today.
Yeah.
We had a cheese party.
Oh my
did.
God. It was so satisfying and yet maybe a mistake.
Yeah, a little afternoon cheese party. So today we're going to be talking about some fun nerdy shit, some fan fiction. And I don't know if it's because everything nerdy seems to be cool now or if it's just my FYP on TikTok, but I see fan fiction discussed out in the open like way more than when I was a youth. Maybe everyone is just craving nostalgia so much that they've discovered or maybe gone back to fan fiction. I don't know. And I'm not sure what caused it, but there seems to be an increase in interest, I would say for sure. So with this influx of new people, especially with people being introduced to fan fiction by TikTok, the established fanfic community is experiencing some issues. And some of these are from the newcomers for sure, but some of them is definitely from good old capitalism. So today, we're going to talk about it. So first off, for you normies out there who have somehow never made it to this side of the internet, Tabitha, do a little history dive on fan fiction for us.
Okay. So first, a couple words to keep in mind. First, there's fandom. Fandom is a community of fans interacting through either discussion or creative works. It's usually considered to have originated with the rise of fans of the new genre of science fiction in the 1920s and 30s, though there was some usage of it earlier referring to sports. By the way, I do really recommend fanlore.org for all of your fandom questions. That was where I got a lot of this information.
Oh.
So second definition is fan fiction. Fan fiction is a work of fiction by a fan with a source media or specific person as the starting point. This was originally used in the sci-fi fandom to refer to fan works in sci-fi zines. Zines, or zines, or fanzines, are self-published magazines, usually different people sharing fan works on a common topic intended for a small audience. Okay, so how old is fan fiction in general? The Aeneid was just fan fiction of the Iliad.
Yeah, so the Aeneid being about Aeneas of Troy, who left the events of the Iliad and going on this like Odyssey-like journey to Italy where he founds Rome, and it's written by Virgil somewhere around like 29 BCE as a kind of like a yay Augustus sort of thing. It's basically propaganda, and then he kind of plagiarizes the Iliad.
Oh, cute.
But like it's good. I did enjoy translating it out of the original Latin.
Oh, fun.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, and then also, technically Shakespeare wrote a lot of RPF that is real person fiction about historical figures.
So many RPFs.
I don't read them. They weird me out.
You weren't an Antony and Cleopatra fan?
No.
Also, Jane Austen's nieces were known to write fan fiction of her stories, like, around the time that she was alive.
That's amazing.
And there was a published Sherlock Holmes parody as early as 1891. So when we're talking about zines for specific works, not just generally sci-fi, the first one was probably I, Palantir, a Tolkien anthology published first in 1960 and running for 4 issues. After that came Star Trek. Now, this isn't me forcing Star Trek into the conversation like I do in every episode. Star Trek actually plays a really, really large part in fan fiction history. So starting with Spockanalia in 1967, Star Trek became huge in terms of fan works. They had many zines and are thought to be the originator of many fan fiction tropes. For example, the sex pollen trope. There was a 1967 episode called This Side of Paradise, where they visit an alien planet and are exposed to a spore that lowers inhibitions in humans and, I guess, other types of aliens, because Spock is able to express romantic feelings while being under its effects, which, is obviously a big deal for a Vulcan.
I hate the sex pollen trope.
Yeah, super weird.
I can't believe. I mean, this makes sense to where it started. The only time I've really seen it is when I was in like my Marvel phase,
Mm-hmm.
and they would go to like an alien planet, and then it would be there.
Not my fandom, but I imagine this happens a lot in Harry Potter fandom with potions and
Yeah, I was
stuff.
about to say, does this account for potions and such?
Oh, to be honest, the ones that I've read don't really have like. I mean, I guess the only one I can think of is I read The Auction. I actually haven't finished it. I do this thing with fanfiction where I start it, get like 3/4 of the way through, and then don't finish it.
Yeah.
Commitment issues or something. I have no idea. But anyways,
Still haven't finished Baldur's Gate.
actually, that's worse. Anyways, but in it, that's like the only thing that is close enough. Someone has kind of created this like aphrodisiac on steroids potion. But other than that, really, no. Maybe it's out there. Let us know, listeners.
Yeah, I feel like it's a trope that worked. It made sense in terms of Star Trek, visiting other planets. But
Yeah,
it's
it's
just I can't believe it has such staying power in so many different fandoms.
Yeah.
So there's also lots of jargon that's specific to fandom and fan works. Like fic, squeet. People still say squeak.
I was gonna say I don't actually know what that
Don't
is.
think they say
Okay,
squee
so
anymore.
that dates me.
Yeah.
Wait, no, what is it?
Squee was like the excitement.
Yeah, when you're
of-
excited to say
Oh.
squee.
Like this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I do. Yeah, the flailing arms. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought that was an internet thing.
I think it started in
I think it
fandom.
is.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
An
That makes
internet.
sense.
Well, it's in fandom though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have Mary Sue, Fluff, Drabble, etc. Again,
Is
if
that
you
how
want
you
to know.
I always say Drable.
It has
Really?
trouble. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
We all this is established. I don't know how to read, so I don't know why we're excited that I didn't know this at all.
Again, fanlore.org is a great place to go to if you see one of these terms and want to know what it means. I will say, side note about Mary Sue. This is also from Star Trek. As zines multiplied, there were a ton of self-insert stories, usually involving one or two women on board the Enterprise, which is the ship in Star Trek, helping the original characters and often ending up in a romantic relationship with one. Apparently, there were just like tons and tons and tons of these. So, in true pick-me fashion, in 1973, Paula Smith, I suppose you'd call her a big-name fan in the Star Trek fandom, like a really well-known fan, wrote a parody called A Trekkie's Tale with a protagonist named Mary Sue, and it was making fun of the poorly written reader insert stories.
Oh, so is she like the absolute best, absolute strongest?
Yes. She's like the youngest captain ever. Everybody falls in love with her.
Of course.
And I'd say I'm being too critical of Smith because God knows we've all seen some truly shameful behavior in fandom spaces,
Yeah.
things that people should be shamed for. But this woman later claimed she was doing it to help amateur writers improve so they could be taken more seriously as sci-fi authors. And that sounds like bullshit to me.
That is
Yeah,
total
I was
bullshit.
just thinking
Yeah.
that.
No. That's exactly what someone would say after they're done. Like, that was kind of crappy of me. I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
repackage it.
Yeah, because they said it did kind of cause a hit to the Star Trek zine community.
Yeah,
Like, there
because
was
you're
lot
shaming a
fewer
bunch of young
submissions.
girls who were
Yeah,
like
exactly.
writing.
But given her credit, maybe Smith didn't realize that our misogynistic culture would latch onto this forever as a way to demean women's creative efforts.
I know. I was just gonna say that's like a term that's used outside of fandom. I think, like when
Yeah,
Star
it is.
Wars came out, they all called Rey Mary Sue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, like, kind of rightfully so. But as was Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, it's pretty much any like female character with a lot of power now gets called a Mary Sue.
Well, I just called Feyre Mary Sue the other day. So.
Yeah. And the male character is the Gary Stew.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm only doing this because, we've talked about what fan fiction is, but I think there's kind of like two types. And when I try to describe fan fiction to my normie friends when we were watching 50 Shades of Grey, they just like didn't get it. And also there was that one lady who went viral on TikTok recently for reading Manacled, a Dramione fan fiction where Voldemort wins. And she was like, first off, did you guys even read Harry Potter? Because Voldemort doesn't win. That's not how it works. And everyone in the comments was like, lady, do you not know what fan fiction is? And apparently she didn't. So I think fan fiction can fall into one of two categories. One is alternate universe, and the other is canon divergence. And I think if you're new to fan fiction, this might help explain like how it works. So AU, or alternate universe, is basically if you picked up the characters and then put them in like a different setting. So sometimes the plot of whatever media you're fanficking, if you will, stays the same. So for those of you who don't know, somehow 50 Shades of Grey is an AU of Twilight. If you watch 50 Shades of Grey or read the book, it basically hits the same plot points as Twilight does. So like, you know, you have kind of like your fancy man who's whatever the heck that guy's Jamie Dornan.
Yeah, that's
I don't even
his
know.
real name.
Yeah, but what's his character's name?
Christian Grey.
Oh my God.
His name is in the title.
I knew his last name was Grey, but I couldn't remember. Whatever. And then you have Anastasia, who's Bella, and they're both like the most boring characters ever. And then you can just watch the movie, and it's literally the same. So sometimes, though, in other stories, the plot like doesn't really stay the same. So Love Hypothesis was technically a Raylo fan fiction. So in these sorts of AUs, it's really like the character background and the characterization that stays the same, but the plot doesn't matter. Like you can't read Love Hypothesis and be like, oh my God, this is the first Star Wars, because Adam, the character in Love Hypothesis, doesn't like try to murder Rey throughout the book, right?
Yeah, they're just the same characters plopped into a different time, space, alternate universe reality, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can still find some similarities in, I think, AUs like that, but again, it's within like the character background. So usually in like Raylo fan fiction, Rey, who's like an orphan in the Star Wars movie, is usually like a foster kid or something in the books, and then Kylo Ren is usually like estranged from his parents and like has a weird uncle who like murdered a bunch of people. Which
suspiciously
you can,
well off,
connected
to royalty.
Yeah, usually his mom is like a senator, you know, very obviously, or like a politician or a philanthropist, like something like that. So that's type 1. And then canon divergence is where you literally diverge from canon.
I will say that alternate universe is definitely a category that I have seen made fun of a lot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically in the Marvel universe. There are so many people critical of it that say, you know, you have these superheroes that can do anything, and you literally make a story where they can work in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I think
like,
that's amazing.
It's like, yes.
I love it.
Do you realize that, like, for us, the appeal is like the character and how they interact with each other, and not how much they can punch someone?
Yeah, because here's the thing about it. People punching in fanfic is boring.
It can be exciting, but most of the time it's boring. Like
most of the time, what we want is just the characters interacting with each other.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, or not saying, but I was just thinking, like, with AU and even with canon divergence, it's more about exploring the characters.
Yeah, and also the what if opportunities.
Yeah,
right. Like you see, like certain relationships happen on screen, and you're like, you know, what would be really much better if that didn't happen at all, and that person was with someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what would make it so much better.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you know, the shipping that happens in fanon is just probably the best part of
I agree.
the AUs and even canon divergence. But, like, yeah, that's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, if you're going to, like, what's the reason why people write different, maybe in these two categories, AU is definitely, like, more so for the character exploration. Canon divergence is maybe where, like, you are unhappy with how the plot actually went out.
Fix it fic.
Yeah. So to get to the other category, canon divergence is where, as I said, you divert from canon. So you basically find a part in the original story and you stop and then continue on with, you know, what if this happened here? And then that's basically where your story starts. So, like, a lot of Dramione fan fiction is Voldemort wins, then you're in, like, the worst universe ever. There is, like, a subset of this that I don't think really fits, which is where it's basically the same story, but it's within different, like, from a different point of view. So I remember reading this Winter Soldier story that basically was a retelling of everything that happened to Bucky Barnes, who's the Winter Soldier, once he, like, fell off that train and then got captured by Hydra. And it went through, like, some of the things that were mentioned within, like, the original canon, but it was really
so it would be like canon compliant,
right? But it, but, like, there's things that happened that they wrote into the story that definitely didn't happen within the, you know, within canon, but that's, like, the only one that I don't think really fits perfectly, like canon compliant, canon divergent, but that's so anyway. So yeah, and then you could say some are kind of like both, like, a Voldemort wins AU, you're technically in this alternate universe now because you did this very specific canon divergence.
There's so many things that can be done in fanfic. It's all over the map, but it's really just, you know, the original characters in different situations.
Exactly. That's it to its simplest form. So, and we love it for different reasons.
All of us together.
Tabitha, back to you.
So for this podcast, I read several academic articles, which I will provide the citations for in our show notes. One of them I read was called Roundtable, the Past, Present, and Future of Fanfiction. It was 4 English academics having a conversation, and I felt like it really helped me articulate some of the ideas I'd been struggling with. First, you can look at fanfiction through 2 lenses. You can say it is a community-based form of social interaction, and you can say it is a form of narrative world building. That means you should also probably look at it from a sociological and a psychological angle. And traditionally, namely, fanfiction has been looked at as a way for female fans to express pleasure, fantasy, and desire. It's expanded since then. It doesn't just include cis straight women, but I mean, realistically, they are the majority.
They definitely are.
Yeah.
I would say that fandom is primarily driven by women, if not straight white women. Yeah.
So for a long time, fanfiction in the 20th century, self-proclaimed definition of fanfiction, it wasn't regarded as literary at all because it was considered to have derived from television, not from literature, which is crazy. Like I said earlier, people have been writing like Darcy Elizabeth stories since the book came out. I personally think it's because it's an area of creative writing dominated by women, and that's why it wasn't taken seriously. You know, everyone focuses on the Mary Sues in fanfiction, but not the truly breathtaking prose that you can sometimes encounter. My example is from fucking Supernatural.
Which I feel like is maybe the biggest community.
Oh, God.
I mean, I didn't go through and pull any numbers from AO3.
It was also 15 seasons long.
I know.
It was just forever. So...
For example, I once read a story in the Supernatural fandom that had to be the most original descriptions of a magic system I have ever read. The way the author described the distortions in reality that this magic produced was beyond anything that I have seen elsewhere. Anyone else have one that they read that really stands out?
Yeah, I have a couple. I read this one Dramione fan fiction that was just so beautiful. It was also just like so unbelievably long, but the prose in it was really poetic. It like really went into like not everyone's, but kind of like Hermione's growth as a person and her like self-realization, and the character development and everyone else was just like really realistic and spot on for what they were describing. And then it's so embarrassing. I read this Naruto fan fiction back when I was in middle school that was just like heartbreaking but beautiful. It was like unrequited love. There was so much pining. There was like a divorce happening. It was really good. But I don't know if it holds up because I read that in middle school. Maya?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah, speaking of Supernatural, I'll just go right back to Supernatural. I was really a big fan of Supernatural for like the first maybe 4 years of the 15-year run.
Whoa.
But I read a lot of Jofic because I loved her character, and I think I just wanted to see women take center stage in this like extremely male-soaked universe.
Yeah.
I was really fascinated by the women that they did include and then immediately killed off. It was just like such their thing. And I was like, God damn it. I just wanted to see like how these characters would interact in the world that was built. And some of those fics are just so eloquent and tragic, and they like spoke to the female perspective that, you know, the show really wouldn't let them have.
Yeah.
So that's really just really what I wanted. I wanted like a female Supernatural.
Yeah.
And then also back in the day, I used to read a lot of Dominic and DeWitt from the Dollhouse fandom, and this is like such a tiny fandom, like I think 15 people were a part of. But let me tell you, they did amazing work, and they know it. And just shout out to you 15 people out there, if you ever stumble across this. I enjoyed literally everything you produced.
So back to this article I read. One of the contributors, English professor Francesca Coppa, says that she has thought of fan fiction varying between a network, an archive, a collective, and an ecosystem, which I think it is all of those things in different ways. And thinking about this, it is wild to think about the broad generations that exist together in fandom spaces now online. Like an 8-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 40-year-old will all have their own life experiences and are influenced by different parts of the digital landscape, i.e. the difference between like Skibbity Toilet versus Chocolate Rain. Also, we all learned different fandom etiquette based on how we entered social spaces on the internet.
Yeah, totally. I will say there seems to be a shift, maybe. I mean, this is kind of like a cyclical event, but there seems to be a shift in how newer members are interacting with the community. And I think I don't really know what's causing a ruckus, and I don't think it's necessarily this newer generation, but something about it is just like a little bit of a culture change, and it's maybe not for the better, but welcome new people, just behave, please.
So another contributor on this panel was an English PhD at Tulane named Kristina Busse. In another article I read, they named this person as a pioneering Omegaverse scholar. So this woman is killing it.
Can you imagine just sitting down with her, like just getting a drink and be like, tell me everything?
Number
Kristina.
one, I would love to be like, which came first, the last name or your interest in Omegaverse, but...
So she says that in the 1990s, 4 things were considered taboo across most fandoms. These were underage, real person fiction, incest, and domestic discipline. Then, by the early 2000s, 3 of these had moved into the mainstream. And I would say that in 2024, with the upcoming publication of Manacled, domestic discipline is mainstream now.
I think everything is on the table.
Guys,
Yeah.
What's domestic discipline?
Like, you know how in Manacled, he, like, has to... like hit her.
Yeah.
Like spousal violence.
Yeah, but like
having a reason for it was the way that I interpreted it.
Yeah, like if there's some sort of rule that you've broken within like some sort of predefined term, like it's and then one of the people in that arrangement can then punish you for breaking said rule.
Oh, okay.
But also I think it's like your general, like, you know, domestic violence.
I will say, I don't think they're actually, I still haven't read Manacled, but I don't think they're married. Like, she's his handmaiden.
They live together, though, right?
Yeah, but like a handmaiden.
Yeah,
like,
she's a handmaiden.
Not the,
They're
like,
not married.
It's domestic, so...
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
Okay.
So people out there who've read Manacled and are listening are like...
No. None of us have read Manacled. Everything
Not
is
yet.
just, you know... Yeah.
No, it'll happen one day.
No.
No. I'm not for the pod. I'm just saying my
I've
curiosity
known
is going to
people
get
in
me.
my social circle are reading it right now, and they're obsessed. All of them.
I know, that's
everyone
where
who
I'm-
gets hold of it are like, it's not actually as bad as people say.
I know. My like non-existent oppositional defiant disorder is coming out when stuff like that happens. I'm like, I don't want to now. But also I don't want to because it has a couple topics that I don't love reading about. But
So now, again, talking about this article I've read, but some notes on TikTok. Now TikTok has entered the landscape. And it's not only less anonymous, obviously, with your whole face out there, but it is less textual. So we have people presenting fandom discourse in a new medium. Reading this article and thinking about this, I feel like I hit on my feeling of like why I'm uncomfortable with this, why I like started to feel like a boomer when this was happening. And it's that TikTok adds a performative quality to fan fiction that I felt like was a lot lesser in the past. I don't think that reading fan fiction should be shameful. I don't think that reading explicit material should be shameful. But it was back in the day, like when I was coming up in the early internet days. It was something only your own online friends usually knew about you. It was not something you shared in regular life. I was worried that my sketchy feelings about fan fiction on TikTok were some sort of bias on this. Like, I suffered, so you have to too. But I don't feel that way. I'm happy it's less shameful. I'm glad people get to talk about it. For me, as someone who prefers queer romance, the lessening of taboos around all aspects is great. For example, it was unheard of in my high school years to have a mainstream publisher put out a gay romance that didn't like end tragically to teach you some sort of lesson about being a homosexual.
Yeah. Same. I come from an era where we all interacted with the fandom behind, you know, made up handles. So it's like for the youths out there, it's like you'd say, my name is Alec and Max Forever 98. And that was just what people knew you as. And fandom was for the most part done on LiveJournal or on very specific, like ship specific websites and message boards even. And
I had to tell Emma today what GeoCities was.
yeah, isn't it crazy?
I'm a baby.
So yeah, I mean, you protected your in real life persona, and until you had like kind of a trusted circle of friends within that group, and then you'd be like, my name is Mara.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone though. And there are some fandoms that would get completely wiped out the second a message board went down. That was just like, how fandom went. And
that happened to me with an Anne Rice
yeah,
fan group.
same. It happened to me too. And it's like, that's a time to have lived, right? Like a whole fandom lived and died, and now no one even knows it existed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very much an online thing and not something that bled over into real life. And I think the difference now is that, you know, in real life is online and online is in real life. And I think that's great in some aspects because you can really like roll around in what makes you happy and not worry about that shame. But also I think it can create other problems that TikTok has exacerbated.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is so embarrassing. So we had a family computer in my house that we had to share within all my siblings. So, and also my parents. So I would go on my family computer and I would read as much as I could. And then when I got like the 15-minute warning, I would print out whatever chapters I could. So I would like leave the computer room, like the office, with like reams of paper, like front to back, like the smallest font possible of like Naruto fanfiction. And then I would put them in a little folder and I would hide them in my bedroom. And then at night I would read them. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm at chapter 21. I got to go read the chapters, whatever. Like it was a time. I didn't even have an account or anything. I would just go and Google and know that everything by name and blah, 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 blah. Like I didn't tell anyone in person that I read fanfiction until like maybe 6 months ago. Like, and because it was more popular on TikTok and other people had like mentioned it and stuff, and I was like, oh, I've read fan fiction forever. And then to the like Tabitha, your I suffered so you have to point, I feel that a little bit, but not in the you should have to suffer so I have to, but in like this is such a nice turning point. I think that this generation are just like part of society that we're in. When I was a teacher, there was these students who were talking about this like anime game, Genshin Impact, and they were like just talking about it with their full chest. They were just, you know, nerding out about it, and it was really cute. And no one was really like making fun of them that much. They got like a little bit of made fun of because it wasn't like the trendy game, but it wasn't like, oh my god, you guys like anime, blah 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 blah. Like kids would come in with like anime shirts and they would have anime stickers and like they would be like actually reading manga. Manga was in the school library, and I remember said something about like, oh, I know that anime, and my students were like, oh my god, wow, blah 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 blah, and we were talking, and then I got like choked up and I was like, it's so nice that you guys were so nice to each other. Like I got bullied so much when I was in middle school for this. And they're like, okay, miss,
well,
calm down.
I think you're right, because like I remember being laughed at for liking Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like
I think that particular too was because we were young in the 90s
Yeah.
where you weren't allowed to enjoy anything.
That's very true.
You had to be cool and jaded
Yes.
and smoke clove cigarettes
Yes.
and never like anything.
Yes, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
if you showed interest in anything, it was like a little facet of your personality that you could attack, and it was just so sad.
I get a little nervous that like the weird like cringe is fine now. Like cringe is not cool, but you know, like being cringy is okay. But there was definitely like a you're a try-hard energy going on.
But it's the performativeness that I feel is kind of the core issue here with the sort of new forms of social media. So in 1993, academic Peggy Phelan wrote a book titled Unmarked, The Politics of Performance, wherein she uses a phrase often quoted in feminist studies, which is visibility is a trap. In this work, she says, quote, while there is a deeply ethical appeal in the desire for a more inclusive representational landscape, and certainly underrepresented communities can be empowered by an enhanced visibility, the terms of this visibility often enervate the putative power of these identities. End
Wow,
quote.
that was quite the quote.
Then elsewhere, she says, visibility is a trap. It summons surveillance and the law. It provokes voyeurism, fetishism, the colonialist/imperial appetite for possession, end quote.
Yeah, so that's my thought on the visibility. Like TikTok is capitalism. Like anything on TikTok can be commercialized, which is what we see with fanfic. Like nothing can be free the second it goes viral on TikTok, because that is the kingmaker. It's like what pushes, what is free, what is supposed to be written by and for fans, and attributes a monetary value to it. So fanfic is not supposed to have monetary value, but with enough views, it suddenly does. And then it stops being free. Then it stops being about fandom and about what can turn a profit. So that's kind of where I am with like the more visibility something gets, the more people see it, the more that people want it, the more they're like, what can I possibly do to obtain this object in this form here? Would I give $26 for a hard copy? Would I pay $10 more for shipping. What if it had sprayed edges?
Yeah.
You know? And then and then suddenly everything just, it's turn or profit, turn or profit, turn or profit.
Yeah. This, I've never heard this quote until you wrote it, but this I feel like sums up my thoughts and feelings about all of this, and I have like a long discussion of this, so forgive me. Back when AO3 was hacked or fake hacked by that one group and it was down for a few days and everyone lost their mind, I joined the AO3 subreddit, and like the people on there are hilarious. Every so often when I lurk, I notice that in the more recent times there are lots of posts that touch on these different things, and then also on TikTok too. So that's kind of where I'm getting my information, anecdotal information. So like for surveillance and law, for my short time on the subreddit, there seems to be an uptick in the, you guys are writing about this disgusting, heinous, illegal thing posts, and then people kind of like, hey, welcome newcomer, you obviously don't know what AO3 is about, let me explain this all to you. So there's a lot of like virtue signaling that goes on that is kind of, I think with this visibility happening more again. Like I know this is a cyclical thing, like they talk about this on AO3 a lot, but
this takes me back to LiveJournal. We used to get in these fights all the time.
It's like an in-group and out-group thing where
Yeah.
they're like
Yeah,
suddenly
that's-
merging, and it's just like chaos until people can figure out the in-group and out-group again.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what
Yeah.
I mean. And then this like, didn't this kind of happen to fanfiction.net, and they like removed all of the like very explicit fics, or am I kind of making that up? There was a time where you could read whatever basically on there, and then they like made a stance.
There was. You're right. There was something like that. I
Yeah.
can't remember if it was one of those things where you had to visibly, like, you had to actually search for it. It was behind. It was one of those things where it wouldn't just be out there. You had to go and like put a toggle down and say, I definitely want the explicit stuff.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
But then at a point in time, even with your explicit, like a lot of people removed
They removed it entirely.
their stuff and put it on AO3, or
Okay.
it was removed, period.
I do remember something about that. I just
Yeah.
don't remember the specifics.
That was like back when I was in middle school. I was on fanfic
Okay.
and high school. And
Yeah.
then I learned what AO3 was.
Yes.
And then like the voyeurism fetishism, this one was kind of not harder to pinpoint down, but I feel like this is where the fanfiction talkers come in. Like there's always been people talking and like recommending fics to people. Like I've always seen fic recs on Tumblr, but Tumblr is completely anonymous. Like it's similar to fan fiction. No one is like putting their full government name on there. Or TikTok, it's your actual photo. It's you, your actual voice most of the time. It's you out there recommending this. And that is where that like performance I think comes in, and it's because people are like, look at me, watch me read. I am recommending this to you, not like this person out there. I think this is cool. You're in my community,
Yeah.
I mean, I follow those TikTokers and I
know.
screenshot all their stuff. But
I think it's the social media-ification of society, because everyone has followers.
Yeah.
It's like, I am the special cult leader of my TikTok feed. Here is me.
yeah,
And here's the fanfic I like. And if I can get 30 other people to like it because I like it, those people are my people.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the content on TikTok about fan fiction is stuff like, all the videos have a common theme of, aren't I so like naughty and crazy and kooky because I read fan fiction? Wouldn't it be like so embarrassing if the people I knew I did this? Which again, you have your full government name and face out there.
yeah. I mean, I kind of do some of those posts for our TikTok, but it's not my government name out there. I hope not. Like,
No one knows our government names.
I hope you don't. This is not like I feel like that's where this kind of voyeurism thing is. And I love the community that's like, I participate in the fanfic community on TikTok, but it's within its nature because it is that type of social media. It's bringing that in. So
trust me, I would love it if we were all still on Tumblr, but Tumblr won't even let you post boobs anymore.
no, well,
No
it will
female
if,
nipples.
How
it
dare
will
they?
if you're a bot. Every once in a
Yeah.
while, I'll open up my like tags you're following, and the first picture that's on there is some like porn bot, and it's her tits. I'm like, whoa, I'm out in public. This is, I think, something we haven't quite mentioned yet, but the colonialism, imperialism, the increased appetite for possession. This is really the reason why I wanted to start this episode, because there was this kind of chaos that happened a couple weeks ago, maybe like a month or more by the time this is posted, which was people selling and probably still selling bound fan fiction, and the community losing their mind about it.
Right. Yeah. We're saying things like, what is this worth, and can I get it as physical with a sprayed edge with like pretty artwork on the inside flap.
Yes.
And just a reminder, the fanfiction's free.
Yeah. And I think this is where the rub really is, right? Like the people who are that in group who've known fan fiction, we know it's based on the gift economy, based on what fan fiction is, and like kind of how it mixes with copyright and intellectual
freedom.
Thank you. Yes. You know, you're allowed to write it, but you're not really allowed to make money off of it.
Right.
If you do, you gotta, scrub it down so it's clean.
That is the bargain that we have arduously struck with authors,
with the copyright holders.
Yeah.
There was so much drama about that back in the 90s and the early aughts.
Yes.
Like cease and desist letters. We went through that. You guys.
Yeah,
let's not do it again.
Yes. So all these people who are out there now, signaling that this is the death of fan fiction are kind of rightfully afraid, but we can calm down a little bit, and I think the community has calmed down, and they've really come together and flagged people on Etsy, and I don't know if people are flagging people on Temu and Amazon, but other sketchy sites are out there doing this, and this is, I think, really where again the in crowd out crowd are seeing the issues,
because it's like, what is something worth?
We know the etiquette. We know you don't really rate fan fiction because it's a gift someone has given you. You don't like talk shit about it publicly, not in terms of like fuck fan fiction, but like fuck this specific fan fiction and fuck this specific author type thing. Like there's no constructive criticism unless it's asked for by the author.
It's generally poor form to give constructive criticism to an author of fanfic, because it's there for free and they are doing it out of the good of their heart. Yeah. And they're just doing something fun for themselves that they're sharing with you. So constructive criticism is a no-no.
I think this is too indicative of the way that people come to fan fiction has changed, because I know back in my day, in the early internet, my thought process was basically, I really like the X-Men. Like, I really, really like them a lot, and I want to find other people online who also like them. And so you go and you like find other people that are like sharing art and talking about the characters, and then somebody's eventually like, people make up stories about this, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
It's
Tell
like,
me more.
That's kind of how sorry, continue.
So I feel like that's how a lot of people sort of came into it initially. It's because you were interested in the fandom and in that community first. I feel like now people come to it sometimes from a completely different place. Like the woman who read the Dramione fic that like didn't understand how fan fiction worked and was like upset by it.
Right.
And felt that she had...
Like she was tricked or something.
She was. Yeah, she was tricked because she didn't know what fanfic was.
Not to be too mean, but like she felt so vindicated in going online and posting that somebody else was wrong and not her in this situation.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than just like ask a question like, "Is this normal?"
Right. Yeah. I agree, and this is, I think, it all boils down to TikTok. I love TikTok. I'm the person who posts all of our TikToks. But you're totally right. The reason why and how people are coming to fan fiction has changed, and I think that's with the rise of smutty fantasy. People are finding like, oh, there's even more smutty fantasy within fan fiction, so they're coming there. So one thing I will say is, like Tabitha, I read for this podcast, and there was a really good article by Elizabeth Minkle. She wrote, "Lots of people make money on fanfic, just not the authors," and it's on Wired. It's a really good article. She also runs a podcast with, I think, a fellow writer, and she talks about Manacled specifically, because if you weren't aware, Manacled by Senlin Yu is getting published, and they're scrubbing it. And it's actually really interesting because Senlin Yu posted this statement, which I'm going to read. And they said, "Fanfiction is incredibly special to me, and I have tried to do my best not to undermine its legal protection or allow my works to do so either. During the last several years, there has been a growing issue with illegal sales of Manacled, putting both me and the incredible community that shares fanfiction freely in legal jeopardy. After consulting OTW, Organization for Transformative Works," which, if you don't know, they're the people who kind of like run AO3, as well as other lawyers, it has grown clear that as a transformative writer, I have limited options in protecting my stories from this kind of exploitation. But I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't want to just take the story down, in part because I worried that might only exacerbate the issue, but I didn't know what other options I had." And she's basically putting this out there because she decided to publish Manacled. So she is now getting traditionally published. She's scrubbing it all down. The story seems the same-ish.
The same-ish,
Without-
but totally new.
Yeah, without reading either.
Yes.
So, but this is because of, as I said, how people are coming in. They're coming in because it's the trend. They want more of a thing, smut. They want more fantasy. This is now a familiar story, and they're hearing how great and cool it is, which it actually it is.
Also, they have no idea what a fanfic is versus what a book is.
Right.
So they're looking for a book, and they're like,
yes.
where is this book? And they find one bound on Etsy.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It has the sprayed edges, whatnot. And I mean, the problem here, of course, is that like the people who are doing this, who are fan binding, I mean, they've basically become her publisher.
Yeah.
And she has no copyright at all. She has no way to fight this sort of exploitation. There's no way that she can sue them because she doesn't own the characters.
Right. But through publishing her book, she does
Yeah.
now.
So now she has the intellectual property and she has the copyright and she can go after these people. And that is, I mean, that's crazy to me that that's why she has to publish this book.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's like slightly other reasons. I mean, good for her
I
for
know.
making money.
Yes, good for her
People-
for
I mean,
making
she doesn't
money.
have to publish the book. She chose to publish
No,
the book.
other
did.
people who are really popular, and because this is, I mean, I don't know if it's just a Dramione sphere, but this is really where I think I'm seeing it the most because that's the community I'm part of. But other fanfic authors who are really popular have taken their stuff down, and people are sad about it, including me. So, and I just went in one of my bookmarks and it was gone. So,
Yeah.
and I don't even know what story it was.
It's interesting though to me because it's like these are people, you seem to be like individual bad actors who are doing this, putting the fan works out there for the fan binding, thinking perhaps that they're doing good as well, but also, you know, definitely taking advantage.
Yeah.
But like, you know, this isn't the first time people have tried to make money off of fanfic.
No.
Like this is just the most
article
recent.
talks about that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was something called like Amazon put this thing out called Kindle Worlds.
Yeah.
Kindle Worlds back in 2013. Amazon sold it as like a way for fanfic authors to sell their stories. But it was received like almost universal condemnation by fans, and they closed it in 2018. But it was an agreement between Amazon and Warner Brothers or Alloy Entertainment to host fanfic based on their properties, where people would essentially pay for fanfics, and Amazon would set the price based on word count. And the fic was exclusive to Amazon. Amazon took global publication rights, but they didn't want any pornography or any offensive content, which is like, okay, good luck.
There were also like 3 or 4 titles they were allowed to use. One of them was The Vampire Diaries.
Yeah, because it all had to be Alloy Entertainment properties.
Interesting. Oh, that makes sense.
So Alloy owns the copyright to those. And so they were licensed. So the author could retain copyright to their original characters and settings, but they were licensed for use by Kindle World authors and the original copyright holder, which means that other Kindle World authors and the copyright holder, i.e. Alloy, could use those elements without any credit or payment whatsoever to the original author.
Ew, barf.
Yeah, so it's basically like, let's find people to generate ideas for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just wild shit. And so the difference is just like the exploitation is coming from other people, not people in power so much right now, which is interesting, really. I don't know. It's like the exploitation is coming from fans, perhaps, not so much like people like Amazon.
Right. It's just sad that capitalism exploits everything.
Yeah, and then it's sad to me that, I don't know, that she's publishing Manacled. I mean, obviously good for her for publishing it for $10 million, but it's like then publishing steps in and is like, we will give you $10 million for this fanfic. And I'm just like, oh my God, the irony just writes itself.
I know. And it's sad too because there's a lot of people within the fanfic community who don't approve fanfic authors going off and publishing books. It's like in bad taste in their
mind. Yeah,
I don't
have to
really
say,
care.
I don't care either. It's their work. They can do whatever they want with it. As far as I'm concerned, if they want to file off the serial numbers, by all means, go ahead.
Exactly.
There was a story I really liked that a fan fiction author put out that I eventually saw one day was just like taken down. And not super long after that, I was on Kindle and I was like reading the summary of a recent book that came out, and I was like, this is the fucking fan fiction I read.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, now I gotta pay for it.
Yeah.
But also like, yeah, that's fine. It was an AU that was completely different from the source material. So it was an original work.
If you're an author and you're listening, can you just like leave me a note where the fic used to be? Just like I know it's probably more work, but just take the chapters down and just say, Emma, I'm sorry. I had to take this down just so I know what fic it is.
Yeah, personal
So
note.
I can grieve. So if you're new to fanfic, I welcome you. It's a lovely, beautiful community besides kind of the lecture we just threw at you. I hope it doesn't read it as a lecture. It's just kind of our thoughts and feelings.
Look, there are lots of people out there in fandom.
Yeah, there are. Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to say, because I know I came across sounding like a huge boomer who hates new technology and youths. One good thing to remember about app-based social media and writing archives is that it allows for more equality in access to fandom space.
Yeah.
You don't have to contend with, say, affording to go to a convention to meet people, having a computer in your home, or maybe sharing a computer with your family, like Emma had to do to get fan fiction. So
if I had a smartphone back then, the amount of fanfic I would have read.
I understand how there are ways that this has helped fandom. Don't come for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think like lots of communities can grow within the fandom community, if that makes sense.
Oh, look, there's good and bad to everything. I think like TikTok has been amazing to grow the fandom space, and it's pulling in more people than it ever has. And like I said, like in group, out group, like it's chaos right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think making the in group as big as possible is only going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, pull more people in, explain what fandom is to people who don't get it. Like, I think it's going to be really great to have more voices, and I think that's the great benefit to TikTok.
More people just means more fan fiction. And I'm happy with that.
Yep. And more fan art.
Yeah.
And,
the fan art.
And more aesthetics. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Can you imagine?
The playlist, the mood boards. I love it all. So just if you're new to fanfic, maybe just as a reader, I just want to give two little things. Number one, if you didn't realize, fan fiction is a gift to the fandom. It's run on gift economy. So basically, just like when your grandma gives you a shitty gift, you just smile and say thank you. If you finish a fic, maybe just at least leave a kudo. I'm not really one to comment just because it feels too much like putting my face out there, even though it's definitely not my legal name, but I'm just not a commenter. So
yeah, leaving kudos is just a button that you press on AO3.
Yeah. And you know, it's a gift. So you're not trying, you don't want to be greedy and say like, where's my next gift, grandma? So authors might write slow. You need to be patient. Maybe don't start a whip or a work in progress fic if it's not finished and you can't handle it. I don't read whips, but just remember, AO3 authors, fanfic authors are people too, and they got crazy lives. And AO3 authors are notorious for leaving the most ridiculous notes to tell you why they were gone. This is one of my personal favorites. Quote, "Okay, I'm so sorry this was delayed. I had an incident. I got a heart attack from chugging Monster. I'm all right now. I'm currently in the hospital. I have a history of heart issues, so drinking Monster nearly killed me or something. Since I'll be in the hospital for a while so they can monitor me and make sure everything is A-okay, I'll have more time to write more chapters. So the next should hopefully be more speedy, but I make no promises," end quote. There's lots of ones that are like, you know,
I was in jail for a minute.
yeah, I had to mail this to my beta reader who's, you know, kind of like their editor. You should Google it and read some of the crazy ones. They're good. And then number two, if you don't like it, don't read it. So AO3 has tags and warnings for a reason. You know, you might have noticed lots of books have content warnings, trigger warnings at the beginning. AO3 basically created this. So know yourself and read all of them before you open a fic and then get triggered and, you know, feel sad. So I don't like, one of the reasons why I haven't read Manacled is because rape non-con is kind of a thing I don't want to mess with, and it's in there like 3 times as tags and warnings, but I might still try. But know yourself. So fan fiction is wonderful. It's beautiful and fun. Some truly moving and completely unhinged stories get written in fan fiction. It's a cultural icon. It's a moment. So come join us and just be kind.
Yeah. Love everybody, guys.
Yeah.
Especially Star Trek.
Love whatever you want to love.
Yeah, you know what?
There's a fandom for everything. And if
You
there
can
isn't
do whatever
one,
you
you
want.
can create it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.